Hello, chickadees. It's Wine and Crime Wednesday. I have been counting the minutes until we would all meet this evening. I have the most amazing guest. I was just speaking with her backstage, and we have so much we're going to cover. We will absolutely be able to take some of your questions this evening as well. Make sure you say hello in the chat. So I'm going to get right into things quickly. If you're new here, make sure you smash the like button and leave some DNA. Turn your notifications on so when cool stuff like this happens on the channel, you know to come here. If you're watching on the Twix, thank you ever so much for making the choice to hang out with us this evening. And lastly, if you're on the replay crew, I love my replay crew. Thank you so much. Drop me a comment so that I know that you were watching. Make sure you tell me in the chat what everybody's drinking tonight. I am trying desperately to stay hydrated, so it's a bottle of water for me. So not very exciting, but sometimes life isn't exciting. But tonight is exciting because we are going to have the lovely Beth Karas with us tonight. We have an amazing docket of cases that we are going to discuss and get some background. So I don't want to waste any more time. If you don't know who Beth Karas is, you need to go do some searching on the internet because she's an amazing, amazing, brilliant woman. And we are going to have her this evening. Everybody, please welcome Beth.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
I am so thankful and honored to spend these next couple hours with you. Tell me first off, these are Janet questions because these are the things I want to know. So anybody in the chat, if you have other questions, get them in. I know you worked in the district attorney's office in New York City.
Yes.
So I am a big Law and Order watcher. That's how I go to sleep because the dong dong, I think, is some sort of way to cure insomnia. Tell me what it was like to work in the DA's office.
So it's not exactly like Law and Order, but there are definitely parallels. In fact, I think it was People magazine. I was asked to write something for a special edition of People once about what's real and what's not. Those big steps going up to the courthouse and all the Law and Order scenes. Those aren't the criminal courthouse where I work. That's the courthouse next door, the civil courthouse. We don't have those beautiful iconic steps. We just have a couple steps. So, they take license with a few things. And the courtrooms look pretty similar, although I think they used, for Law and Order, they used an unused courtroom.
Really?
In a different building. Yeah. They couldn't have that many shoot days in a real courtroom where they built their own or something, but it's looked pretty accurate. Anyway, I don't remember all the other comparisons, but it's a pretty, it's a pretty accurate show. Now, what was it like? It was a grind. I was there from 86 to 94. So for 4 years, I did street crime, and then I did racketeering and public corruption investigations the latter 4 years until I joined Court TV. But in those first 4 years, here's a new book out right now. It's called The Gods of New York. And it is about that time period, 86 to 90, and everything happening in the city. And all of us had such a huge caseload. And my jurisdiction was Manhattan, right? I was in the Manhattan DA's office, New York County DA's office. There were 500 prosecutors in that office at that time. And we were all busy. Can you imagine? Anyway, I worked routinely 6 days a week. I was constantly, in the first few years, you're just doing misdemeanors. And I tried like 20 something cases in those first few years, just because I wanted to try anything. Because a trial's a trial. You're picking a jury, you're putting evidence in. I needed that experience before I was in the big leagues. And so I was just always answering ready for trial. Picking up cases. We didn't have computers then. I'd work the complaint room like every 6 days or so. We got assigned a shift in the complaint room.
Oh, Lord.
And we interviewed the cops who had just made an arrest, and we hand wrote that we decided which charges. We wrote the factual statement based on the cops, whatever he told us. And then we wrote out the crimes to charge, and we submit them to a word processing center to have the complaint typed up on carbonized paper. You know, you had a pink
Oh, yeah.
copy, whatever. And you know, cops are getting like hours of overtime because it took a long time. There were so many cases and not enough people in the word processing center. It was just a different world, right? I mean,
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
Didn't have cell phones, didn't have computers. Today, you know, they write them out a computer and print them out, and it's a very different ball game.
Yeah. Well, my next question was going to be what caused you to change career paths, but I think I understand.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to be a career prosecutor, though I'm kind of sorry I didn't do it a little bit longer because I love the courtroom, and my leap to court TV was because I loved the law and the courtroom. And so I thought, well, I liked Court TV's mission in those very early days. It was to educate the public to become basically the equivalent of C-SPAN, but for the judiciary, and what C-SPAN is to the legislature. We weren't allowed to have opinions. Even our guest commentators couldn't have opinions. They had to strictly analyze. And that's, of course, what I had to do, was strictly analyze as a reporter. So it was easy, but I remember I wasn't paid any more money initially, right? It was just like, it was like a lateral move, and it was grueling. And I remember thinking there's got to be an easier way to make a living. I remember saying that to myself because I wasn't on air right away. I had to learn the ropes of television. It was a completely new world, technology, terminology, and it was very new. I do remember this sticks in my craw, but I was assigned to a night shift, like a 4 to 8 shift, but nobody told me I didn't have to come in at 10 in the morning. So I was going in at 10, and I was working till 8 or 9. And, you know, I had worked with JFK Jr., and his mother had passed away. And my first summer at Court TV, like right when I started, he asked a bunch of us, me included, to help his family write thank yous to people who sent flowers or whatever on behalf of his mother, Jackie. And the particular woman who was really hard on me, did not like me, refused to let me go and be a part of that with the Kennedy family. And I always resented that because I wasn't doing anything special, but she was really not a very nice person to me. And that was history. You know, I could have been a little slice of history there, helping the Kennedy family. So that really annoyed me. But
we call those people on my channel heifers.
Well,
she's a heifer.
So yeah, but it was a good experience. Obviously, I stayed at Court TV for 19 years until they decided to take it off the air, and I was phased out. I had all signs I could have gone to CNN, but I thought, you know what? I'm so burnt out after 19 years of travel, because at Court TV,
yes,
I was on the road.
Yeah, you were everywhere.
I mean, I was everywhere. I mean, we all were, but like Scott Peterson's trial lasted 6 months. I mean, I got a break to come home a couple of times, but I used to have to pack like 15 on-air outfits, and sometimes the climate would change. Scott Peterson's trial started in early June.
Right, changed seasons.
And it ended in December. So I needed coats and scarves, you know. And I wasn't doing outdoor live shots in the same coat every day, although I did start, I was knitting a lot at the time. I was knitting these different scarves for color, just have some color, you know.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. Anyway, well, I'm moving forward too fast. But what made me change? There are a couple of stories I tell. They're all truthful, but one is deeper than the other. But I mean, I was burning out. Steve Brill asked me if I was ready to be a reporter when he called me, because I knew him from earlier, the guy who started Court TV. He had written an article about the criminal justice system, and it featured me on the cover of American Lawyer. That's why I knew him when I was an assistant DA. And I said, yeah, I think I am ready. But the deeper story is that my younger brother had just passed away, like some months earlier. And I was just grappling with his death still.
Yeah.
I got to change my life. But I would get to my brothers later. So that probably is the main reason I changed. It's like, yeah, I needed to change my life.
Got to take care of yourself too. And we talk about that a lot. Most of my subscribers and channel followers are women. And so we talk about all of those challenges that we face. And especially none of us are spring chickens. that are on my channel. And so we talk about that as well.
Yeah.
But I will say, one of the things, this is going to be my single plug that I have. Part of the reason I have a YouTube channel is to shine some light on cases that seem to have corruption in them, or just smell fishy. And the Holly Bobo case out of Tennessee with Zachary Adams, if you know anyone that can put some light on this, we are still waiting for the judge's determination on post-conviction relief. And he doesn't need to be behind bars. He did not commit the crime.
So, I mean, I didn't bone up on all the, I know the story, but it's not fresh in my mind, but I do know Cheryl McCollum, I think, is the expert on Holly Bobo. You know Cheryl. And
Oh, I know of Cheryl.
Right? I mean, I think it was Cheryl that I've had conversations with about Holly Bobo and what was going on in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's one of mine that very early on, I was like, what is happening?
And do you look at missing people?
I don't do missing people. So I have certain things that I don't cover serial killers. I don't cover children. I can't. And I don't.
And children as victims.
Yes. And I can't do pets. Those I just, certain things, serial killers I'm not fascinated by at all. And then the children and the pets thing, my soul can't take it. And the missing, I watched one missing case. It was about the McStay family in California. And I spent years rabbit holing trying to figure out what happened to that family. I'm like, oh, this is not good for me. I need answers. And yeah, so I can't do missing.
Right. Or unsolved.
Unsolved, I think I'm okay with that, to delve into it. If it looks like we can try to, get some light on things, like the Nancy Guthrie, not so much, because everybody on the earth is trying to figure that all out. But some of the other ones, when Gabby Petito was missing, yeah, those are cases I'm more inclined to be interested in.
Okay. Just checking if anything crosses my desk.
Yes. No, don't. Hey, send it to me anyway. I can decide yay or nay. So you mentioned Scott Peterson and being at Scott Peterson's trial. So let's talk about the session that I tried to sit through the full hour at CrimeCon, where Mark Garagos was on the panel and had new evidence, and I do use the air quotes on purpose. Let's talk about that.
So I'm sorry that I missed that panel, but I think I would have walked.
No, you're not.
Okay, because I would have walked out because it would have frustrated me. There's no new evidence. The court did, I think it was 2 years ago, allow the defense to test some blood on a mattress in this burned out van that they claim the burglars used and kidnapped Lacey in. And the investigation was going to stop if the DNA profile came back male. If it came back female, the investigation was going to continue to see if maybe it was Lacey. So this was a couple of years ago, and it came back male. Okay. So I don't know that there's any other biological material in that van. The judge has said no to additional testing, DNA testing, but my understanding is it related to the van. They've already asked for items in the van. They asked specifically for the mattress. You can't keep asking for the same thing over and over, okay? You can't. I mean, once a judge has decided, you can't just resurrect it again and again. And that's what they were doing. There is no new evidence. Sightings of Lacey walking the morning that she disappeared, the timeline of the burglary, it's revisionist history.
Yeah,
this stuff was thoroughly investigated and vetted at the trial. And I'm sorry, but Scott Peterson is guilty. He's where he needs to be. That he was let off death row and given life without parole, to me, who cares?
Yeah, so what?
He's not ever going to be free. And it's a lot cheaper to keep them in general population than on death row. And they don't execute in California. They haven't executed for almost 20 years now in California. So it's very expensive to house someone. I mean, years ago, it was $90,000 a year versus more like 30 or 40 in general population. Those numbers have probably changed now. Those are older numbers. But the bottom line is it's a lot more expensive to give somebody their own little cell with all of the extra security in a condemned row, in death row. Right. Versus general population.
Well, it's that case in particular for me is if I ever want to explain to someone what a circumstantial evidence case looks like, that's the one that comes to my mind, because it literally was like this layering of a sandwich that when you singularly each one of those activities or pieces of evidence, it's not that big a deal. But when you start putting it together, you're like, oh, so you took your boat out on that day. Oh, there's concrete that you made on that. Oh, her body was found. It just keeps piling on.
So you have basically described what circumstantial evidence is. Every piece of evidence standing alone may have an innocent explanation. But the fact that all of these things are happening at once, there's not like no in it. You look for an innocent explanation that he's going out in the boat 90 miles from home for the first time when it's misting out bad weather. It's a 90-mile trip. So it's an hour and a half or so, depending on traffic, could be longer. And he's due home to be at his in-laws' house. It's Christmas Eve, right? It's Christmas Eve day when he's in the bay at 6 o'clock. And he's out there at 1 o'clock, and it's choppy. The water's choppy. It's misting. It's seawater. He's got freshwater tackle with him. When the police ask him, as soon as, they start looking in the park for Lacey right after she's, they call the police and they report her missing. They're like, what are you fishing for? And he couldn't come up with the words at first. Then he said sturgeon. Well, it wasn't the season for sturgeon. And and if he wanted to test out his boat, there were a lot of freshwater lakes along the way, that 90-mile trip he could have.
Right.
He had been checking the currents in the bay. I mean, there were so many things.
It just kept piling and piling and piling as more information came out. And I was like, oh my word.
Let me also give you a tip for distinguishing direct evidence from circumstantial evidence. We convict people, juries convict people every day in courtrooms across the country on circumstantial evidence.
Oh,
because
yes.
Most murders don't happen in front of eyewitnesses, and most murderers don't confess. Direct evidence is basically eyewitness, maybe a ear witness, maybe somebody heard something, or a confession. Okay, that's direct evidence. It came right from the horse's mouth, or an eyewitness saw it. So a lot of crimes don't happen with that, right?
Right.
We build them on circumstantial evidence. One of the first rules I learned as an assistant DA, don't ever let anyone, don't ever think, but don't let anyone convince you otherwise, that circumstantial evidence is weaker than direct evidence. In fact, sometimes it can be more powerful because the science is the science. And you cannot cross-examine that DNA evidence, right?
Right.
So, eyewitnesses make mistakes. And I can tell you a story. When I was an assistant DA, so I've got more of a trained eye and ear. I was law enforcement. I was at my local bank on my way to work. And at that time, there was a floor-to-ceiling wall window separating the ATM area from the inside of the bank. But you went around to a different door outside to get into the bank. And I'm inside the bank. And I look and I see this young girl in the ATM area. I look again, and there's this guy peering into the bank. And then I'm like minding my business. And then there's a rap. I look over at the window, and the girl now is crying like something has happened. She's just been robbed by the guy who was peering through. I got to look at that guy. And so I immediately ran out and I said, where's the ATM slip? I said, because that's the time. And the camera at the ATM. Right. So, and then two detectives show up and they looked at me, and my title was ADA. So they're like, ADA Karas, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm your witness, right? Nobody would hurt, right? So it was a robbery in the 3rd degree. It was a forcible taking of $20 she had just taken out of the bank. I mean, it was a long time, the 90s. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I get a call from another ADA. We got a guy in custody because the guy had run away. He didn't get caught that day. But we have a guy in custody. Maybe he's the person you saw at the bank. Can you come look at a lineup? So I went to the precinct in Greenwich Village. That's not where I live, but that's where he was locked up. And I looked, his defense lawyer was in there. I was in there with a sergeant friend of mine. I'm in the lineup room. I'm looking through the window and there's 6 people. And I was like, have that one come, 5 people, 5 or 6. I can't remember. Have them, each one come up. As soon as they open, I was like, oh my God, it's I can't remember now. I think number 4. I said, but he cut his hair. And I heard the guy had long blonde hair, a little mullet, like long blonde hair. So, but he cut his hair, but that's him. And his lawyer was like, oh, I could hear his lawyer. I knew I did the right guy, right? And so, I made him come up close to the window. They don't see you, right? It's
right.
And I get a call a week later or so by the ADA, and he's like, you made a miss ID. I said, what are you talking about? I recognize that guy. I need him immediately. He said, the guy you identified he's the robber from the Village case, but he was locked up at the time of the robbery you witnessed. I said, well, then there's a mistake in the records. He was actually released, so the records didn't catch up because that's the same guy. They're like, sorry. So that's my mistake, right, as an eyewitness. But I will go to my grave thinking I picked out the right guy.
Well, I say all the time on the channel here that, and I think we were just talking in the past week or two, I don't even remember what case it was about, but we were discussing the fact that eyewitness accounts are the most flawed type of evidence that you can get. And it's been, I've proven it over and over and over again. The dancing bear video where, you're supposed to be counting the basketballs, how many times they pass. And in the middle of everyone, there's this man dressed in a bear costume that moonwalks in the middle of them. It's like, did you notice the dancing bear? And everybody's like, what? There was no bear. And that's the same thing.
Yes. When I would question my witnesses who had seconds to see somebody, the questions you ask, I mean, any good prosecutor would ask would be, okay, like, how long do you think you saw him? What was the lighting like? How far away were you? What was your opportunity to observe? And I would go to the scenes and see like the street light and how far away, or they're up on the third floor looking down or whatever. I'd go and see it for myself so I could ask better questions at trial. But this opportunity to observe, the distance, and if it's a gun or a knife, they're looking at the weapon. They're not looking at the person's face. So there are
absolutely.
And one of the hardest ways to get like an exoneration, somebody says they're wrongfully convicted, is through recantation of eyewitness testimony. It's very suspect.
Yep. Well, recanting testimony is difficult regardless. That's another one of the things that has happened in the Holly Bobo case with Zachary Adams. So I want to have us move on. And everybody in the chat, I am collecting your questions. You don't need to worry about that. I'm not forgetting you or ignoring you. Let's talk about Natalia Grace.
Natalia.
Do you have any updates? Where is she living? Is she still with the DePauls?
No, she's not with them anymore. I don't know if the production company is more in touch with the DePauls, so they get updates. I've had a few email exchanges recently with Natalia. The feds have fixed her age. She was born in 2003, not 1989, like the Indiana courts had said, right, when they decided she was an adult. She's always been a child born in 2003. Well, at the time that she was abandoned by the Barnetts in Indiana, she was a child, a disabled child without skills or money or anything. I mean, she's just left to fend for herself in an apartment that was not modified for a little person. So she was expected to cook, clean, like just keep herself clean. She didn't just have dwarfism. She had a type of dwarfism.
Yes.
She was going to need like surgery. She was going to be in a lot of pain later in life. I don't think she's had the surgery yet, but she should have had it by now. So the state of Indiana has not corrected her age yet, but the federal government has. That's the last I knew. And she was in the UK. I don't know if she was living there or visiting at the time that we were emailing each other.
Yeah, because she's reconnected with her biological mother
as
well. Hasn't she? Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, the
government, like I remember that.
Indiana, the DA's office found the mother, and we had an interview with her, but because of the war, it went black. I don't know if you remember that episode. But was it ours or was it the government's? I can't remember. It wasn't me doing the interview, but I don't know. I mean, if Natalia's reconnected with her mother, that would be news to me. She might have. I mean, she's an adult now, and she might have.
Right. So, along those same lines of, we're still talking obviously about Natalia. What is your take on the Manns?
Well, this is a couple that found that they could get a steady, well, in my opinion, they could have a steady income.
Allegedly, we say a lot on here, so.
They could have a steady income by fostering a lot of children, and some of them are special needs children too. And I don't know if that means, they had extra benefits, probably had some SSI benefits as well as whatever you get as a foster parent from the state. So it appears, from what I know, and they had this whole boatload of kids. I know they adopted Natalia, but they didn't adopt all those kids, right? They were foster kids. No. If they adopted them, they'd be responsible for them, right? So they're getting money to care for all these kids. That became, their source of income. Natalia helped them too for the few years she was with them, because she had money coming in as with her special needs, and
sure,
she was helping to contribute to the household. He was this like self-proclaimed, self-ordained, minister, but according to Natalia, there was nobody who went to the church. I mean, it was just them. So it's not like the church was bringing money, but he maybe created the church as a tax for a tax.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure, but what I would imagine they were investigated after our series, because, we had the mother asking Natalia, can we still keep your benefits? Which is completely illegal, right? I mean, those benefits are for Natalia. She can't assign them to someone else, right? So,
well, and not only that, I thought they had all this love and care and concern for Natalia, and then you're all of a sudden you turn on a dime, and can we still have your benefits? Like, what?
I know.
That doesn't, I got such an icky feeling from that.
I want to believe that they started out with the right motivation and went sideways, but I don't know. Maybe they started out right with the first kids, and by the time they saw Natalia she wasn't living across the street from them that long. And this was in the second apartment that Barnett's put her in Lafayette, Indiana, which, by the way, is the same town where the same production company found the story, which is now on ID and HBO Max, called The Many Lives of Benjamin Kyle.
I was just going to say that. It's the same apartment.
Right. Oh, that's right. They say it in one of the episodes where Natalia lives, same apartment building. You're right. I forgot about that. You're right.
I was like, what are the odds of that?
Well, they were working on Benjamin Kyle for years. And while they were in Lafayette, they heard about Natalia. And that's how they started on Natalia's story.
Yeah, well, I definitely, the Benjamin Kyle, which is not his real name.
Crazy, right?
Oh my gosh.
I haven't spoken to them since I watched it. I binged it like a week ago, but I wrote them, and I was like, fabulous. All the people in there, Shannon and Eric, those are the people who did Curious Case, my show. They're all my friends.
Really?
Yeah, Ken Maxwell, agent. They're all the people on Curious Case, and Natalia Grace. We're the same team.
Awesome. It was wonderful. I sat, I nonstop. I think I stayed up until like 1:30 in the morning, which is like way late for me to just finish the series, because I was fascinated with it.
It was great.
Are they going to have anything more?
Oh, they're always working on stuff, but I think
I meant about that case.
Oh, that story. I think there is more. So
That's what I got the
I know,
impression.
I thought they wanted more episodes, but I think ID asked for 4 episodes, but or 4 hours. So I got to ask him. I did text Shannon, and I'll try to talk to her in the coming days. I think they may have taken a vacation.
I don't blame them.
They also did the series Becoming Amish that came out not that long ago, but I don't know if
I'll
that's
have to check
it might have
that
been
out.
on TLC. Becoming Amish, which apparently was quite good. I haven't seen that yet.
So one of the final things that I wanted to ask about with the Natalia Grace case, and it's actually a question that came up in the chat, is what's your take on the accusations that were thrown about with reference to Natalia being sexually aggressive? If you
So I know that Jackie Starbuck, who was the DA, when she heard a recording in our show of a nurse saying that Natalia when she was in the psych unit, she was under observation, that she was coming on to some of the men there. The prosecutor said that's news to her. She had never heard that.
really,
And that was a nurse telling us that. So I don't know if somebody, I don't know if it's true, but the DA didn't know about it.
I felt like it was very thin, the way it was presented in the entire case on television. It just didn't. I was like, I don't know that I believe that. I don't know that there really is any meat on that bone. So that kind of backs up what my hunch was.
Yeah, there is speculation, though, that Natalia might have been trafficked when she was in the orphanage in Ukraine. She does have that memory of a cloth being put over her face. And then when she wakes up, she's in a different place. So she might have been, drugged and then sexually abused. And it's I mean, she's a sexual person. She was when she was living with the DePauls.
Well, I mean, she was in her 20s, was she not?
Correct.
So that's
right.
That's a normal thing
to. That's right.
It's sometimes we forget the age of people, and my son is 24, and I was actually just talking to him this evening on my drive home, and we were talking about the Terrion Arnold case, and I was spitting and sputtering and spewing that there is no evidence. And don't worry, everybody in the chat, we're going to do a replay of the bond hearing because there's a lot there. But I said to him, Terrion Arnold is your age. He's the same age as you. He's 24, you're 24. Can you imagine being in the position that he's in? So we forget people's ages.
I don't know that. I have my nose to the grindstone working, and so I'm missing all these cases. What are you talking about? Maybe I know it.
Terrion Arnold was, I say was because he was just dropped earlier this week by the Detroit Lions. And of course, I'm a Michigander. So I'm a huge Detroit Lions fan. And the bond hearing was earlier this week. And so that was like our sneak peek to the evidence. And there's not evidence. I mean, you got 2 snitches who copped a plea to say that he was this big mastermind of kidnapping and beating the tar out of these supposed victims. So it's a mess. And I'm all about cases that don't seem to add up. And this one already, just from the bond hearing, I'm looking at it going, this doesn't add up. I don't know how you're going to ruin a young man's life based on a couple snitches saying there's no text messaging, there's no video evidence, there's nothing.
Do you know that there is none, or that it's just not public yet?
They didn't present any of it in the bond hearing when they laid out the case for the judge. And even he said, this does not rise to the threshold of, beyond probable cause for me. And so he let him out on bond.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
sounds like it was the right decision.
Yeah. It's definitely one I'm going to follow. I was going to follow it anyway, but now that I got into it a little more, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just am not seeing what I think I should see in a case that far along. Let's talk about Tourette's Town.
Leroy, New York, or
Yes.
Leroy or Leroy. They say locals will say Leroy. People from out of town say Leroy. I don't know, but they say either way is correct.
So, what do you believe was happening with all of these people? Because it was mostly young people, but then there was one woman that was older,
One
correct?
woman, it was mainly girls, but there was one young man. So, and one adult, like in her early 30s, but mainly teens in high school, female teens. And one starts ticking, and I mean, we're talking verbal tics and physical tics and bad, like falling out of her chair and head is tilting, and sounds like Tourette's. There was a student at the school
Yes.
with Tourette's, and it kind of mocked Tourette's, but Tourette's is not contagious. And first it was one girl, then it was her friend, and then it spread into, over time there were like 19 or so. And it's really, I mean, it's really hard to understand. They call it conversion disorder and mass psychogenic illness. Conversion disorder, it's basically when you take a neurological like hiccup and it becomes physical. You yawn, and I watch you yawn. I'm gonna yawn. That's
Right.
a conversion. That's a conversion disorder, right?
Correct.
And we
Yes.
kind of mock it. But when it becomes multiple people, that's when they call it mass hysteria. But the term today is mass psychogenic illness. That actually was diagnosed by the doctors early on, but with HIPAA laws, they did not have authority or permission to say anything. So, I mean, the parents are going crazy saying, it's got to be environmental. There's got to be toxins. It's like, well, why is it just mainly young girls? Like, why isn't it more people? Why isn't all the boys teams? Why aren't they getting sick too?
Right.
Like, why is it confined to this? And we had debates internally at the company about like, what is this? They weren't just the producers, they weren't just accepting this conversion disorder, mass psychogenic illness. They said there's got to be something that started it. What started it? And then it went like the hysteria. It turns out that, I mean, a theory that we learned is that there was like pot, marijuana circulating, laced with ketamine or something.
Yeah.
That can cause tics. And that had been going around. We did learn about some arrests that have been made around that time up there. I actually talked to the woman who wrote about it, and she is an heiress to the Jell-O fortune. Remember, like Leroy, New York, is where Jell-O started, right? And she wrote a book. I wonder, where's my book? Gosh, what was her? It was a great book. It's like a memoir of her mother, of losing her mother. Her mother got her mother. She was a descendant of the Jell-O fortune, and her mother's illness sort of following her. And at one point, this mass hysteria, happens in Leroy. And her mother they talk about it in the book, because her mother had sent her a New York Times article about it. Said it was a good article, a good, long, in-depth look at it. And so I talked to Allie Robot, it's her name. I reached out to her to say, like, what do you think? And she said, I'm so glad you're digging into this, because I don't just accept that it was, just like one day these girls had these tics, these students. So it may be related to some drug, some illicit drug that was circulating at the high school, started it, and then it kind of, then the mass hysteria took over.
Yeah, when I watched that episode, that was initially, I just kept thinking, there must be something that is being introduced. There must be something more to this. And then finally, when we got to the end and they started talking about all the weed and everybody's smoking pot, and I went, oh, well, there you go. And especially, what year was this? I'm trying to remember. I have it probably in my notes here. What was that? 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So we're talking 15 years ago. Yeah, it's possible that they could have had some very weird strain of Mary Jane, and that was the problem. That seems far more likely to me. And also, the one young girl that you all interviewed and had on the show, she said, "Yeah, once I stopped smoking all the weed, I stopped ticking."
Exactly, right? And we also had the one with Tourette's. She was lovely too, right?
Oh, she
Rose, I think
was.
it was Rose. Yeah. It must have been tough going to high school with that, but she's
Oh
lovely.
my gosh. She seemed like an absolute delight. So yeah, if you all in the chat or anyone watching has not seen The Curious Case of, this was season 1, is that what I'm remembering? That
Tourette's was season 1, yeah.
season 1.
Was it 1 or 2?
I know.
They've already shot season 3.
I was going to ask about season 3.
They all start to this is season. No. Tourette's was season 2. And so was the hypnosis.
Well, that's going to be, that was the next.
It was the 3rd episode. Tourette's, I think, was the 3rd episode, 203. Yeah.
That's what I was going to talk about next. And again, if you're watching and you haven't all had an opportunity to check out The Curious Case of on Hulu, I know it's on for sure. That's where.
Well, Natalia Grace is on Hulu. Is my show on Hulu?
The Curious Case. Yeah, the season, the both. Actually, I think only season. I think only one season is, but you can also catch it on. Like I have YouTube TV, so it's on
HBO Max. It's on HBO Max.
HBO Max, yes. So yeah, you need to go check it out because there's
Every
really
episode is different. Every episode is different. It's a spinoff of Natalia Grace, and Natalia Grace was 3 seasons, 6 episodes. Last season was 4 episodes. That was a story that just kept giving, but it's like at some point we had to cut it, right?
Right.
So I got this spinoff show, Curious Case of ... Every episode has a different title. Curious Case of the Girl Who Died Twice. That's in season 1. Curious Case of the Corpse Who Came to Dinner. That's the finale of season 2. That's a crazy one. That's a crazy one. The woman who just did not like the idea of her twin sister or her husband being buried. So she dug them up and kept their corpses in her house. But her husband died like 9 years before her sister. Her sister she kept in the house.
On the sofa, right?
Mothballs in her abdomen to mask the smell. And then she put, it kind of sad, but she had her marbles. She put a wig on her, glasses, makeup. She'd have coffee with her every day, go in and read the paper to her. And this is not something that happened to her in old age. She's passed away. This was in Pennsylvania. And this is not something that happened to her in old age, because when she and her husband, they never had children. She and her twin married brothers. The brothers were not twins, but they married brothers. But when June, I don't know, whatever. When she, the culprit in our story, when she was going to Florida to visit her mother with her husband, they were young. Her mother had passed away. No, they weren't going to visit her. Her mother had passed away. They went to visit her in the cemetery. They were going on vacation to Florida. She insisted they stop by the cemetery so she could visit with her mother. They dug her body up and opened the casket so she could sit with her mother before continuing the trip. So this is a woman who was not like creeped out by a corpse.
No,
not creeped out at all.
No,
and felt that they were still there and feeling things apparently, because she. I know. Of course, her husband. By the time the police go there, it's not funny. Her husband. She had moved her husband from the house to the detached garage across the street, and he was found rolled up in a carpet with a bicycle and some boxes on top of him. So it's
I remember.
What's up with that?
And well, let's talk about it. Wasn't it the medical examiner in that little community?
The coroner. He was the coroner.
Okay. He's a bit of a wackadoodle.
He's a character too, right?
Yes. It's like all the crazies came to live in one place, and they're like, "Hey, let's all be crazy together." It's like, what is up with this
coroner?
dude?
I mean, he took the bodies and he had them in a locker, and they decided, they had to rebury them. And while they were in the locker, the refrigerated locker, she
came to visit.
yeah, she wanted to come visit. She gave him like clothes to put on them, and she didn't want them to get cold, and slippers, whatever. And then I don't know if she wanted like them to like be out and meet a new corpse, like to have a little tea party with a new corpse. It's like, I don't know.
It's so weird. I've never heard anything like that before. So yeah, that one had me absolutely baffled. So since we're still talking about the curious case of, what about Dr. George Kenny?
These stories, that's another 2011 story. What's happening in 2011? Tourette's, not Tourette's, the tick story.
Yeah,
Dr. Kenny, we're about to talk about in Northport, Florida. Casey Anthony's trial was happening that summer in Orlando. What else was happening in 2011? Jodi Arias had been arrested. She hadn't gone to trial yet. She kept changing her. She and Casey got arrested a day apart, July 15th. And
really?
16th. I remember thinking, gosh, one's in California, one's in Florida, a day apart in July, mid-July.
I never realized that.
Huge cases of, pretty women charged with murder.
Oh, yes.
Both facing capital murder. And, and I end up covering both of them in depth. And so I thought, wow. So I'd like to, create little timelines in my head. And as I was reviewing today, I was like, wow, a lot of these things were happening at the same time. This is 2011. And that
is strange.
And the corpse case, I think it was 2009 or 10. So it was just before.
Yeah,
Dr. Kenny. You want to talk about Dr. Kenny?
Yeah,
doctor of music. He's not a medical doctor, PhD.
Correct.
In music, I think, but he was the high school principal in Northport, Florida. Now, Northport, Florida.
He was adored. He was absolutely adored by everyone there. That was the impression I got.
Yeah. Just another note of another case that intersected with Northport, Florida. Brian Landry, who killed
Gabby Petito.
His remains were found in Northport. He would have gone to this high school, but like 2 years, he would have started, I think 2 years later. 2 years later, he would have started at that school. So he missed like Dr. Kenny. Anyway, George Kenny was really popular, good principal. And he had a little side hobby. He was certified in hypnotism. And he was fascinated by hypnotism. He went to a week-long class in Florida. So he's certified, not licensed. There's a difference. You can't do hypnotherapy, with patients if you're just certified. This is more like it's not illegal to hypnotize people, right? But he was hypnotizing minors who needed parental permission, and he started doing it at school, and he started doing it in a therapist type setting.
I was going to say, as a therapeutic way.
Yes, students were coming to him because of anxiety with their test performance, because of pain on the football field and just sort of athletic performance. And he was hypnotizing them and teaching them how to self-hypnotize and push through the pain and, and calm down and take that test. And he was effective. I mean, we had one student in particular, now a young adult, who swears by this guy because he was not academically strong student and he needed help. Like he didn't have self-confidence, and Dr. Kenny helped him get through tests, get through school. And this guy, in our episode, which is in season 2, maybe, I don't know where, halfway through, he swears by him. So there were 3 students in 2011 between like March and May who were all hypnotized by George Kenny, and more than once who died. Now, one was the star quarterback on the high school football team. And he had gone to a dentist appointment. He was driving with his girlfriend in the passenger seat of a truck away from the dentist. It was a daylight, clear weather, straight highway. And she looked over at him, and they had been listening, she says, to like Katy Perry songs or something, and just having a good time in the truck. And they were just high school sweethearts. And all of a sudden, like he went into what looked like a trance, and his arms got stiff. Now, in one description, I heard his eyes rolled back in his head. I'm not sure if that's true. His arms got stiff, and she tried talking to him, like, "What's going on, Marcus?" Marcus was his name, Marcus Freeman. And it was like he was incommunicado. And he just veered. I mean, he's just going along on the highway and he veered off the road and they crashed and they're going to hit a culvert or something. He is killed.
Yep.
She's badly hurt, but survives. She didn't talk about this in any interviews until she came on our show. She's now married and she talked about it. So that was the difference between there other people have done this story, but when we got her for the first time. So that was our peg for doing the story, because George Kenney wouldn't talk to us. He had talked in another show a few years earlier, but he wouldn't talk to us. He got investigated. Well, okay, that's Marcus, I think March. Then in April, a student named Wesley McKinney, he was a musician. He really wanted to get into Juilliard and he was anxious about it. And Kenney was helping him through hypnosis. He came home from school one day and his mother says he just walked straight through the house when she's like, "Hi, Wesley." And he didn't say anything to her. He was just in his own little world. He walked straight through the house and outside into another house. I think it was a house that was being built or renovated or something. So it was an unoccupied house. That's where he was found. He hung himself.
Yes.
So it's what was going on in his mind? Did he self-hypnotize and he's pushing himself through his pain or his anxiety and he kills himself? And then within a month, maybe 3 weeks later, another young girl, Brittany Palumbo, same thing, kills herself. She and her boyfriend, I think they had broken up, so she's in pain. So this is how she pushed through her pain. She hung herself. So these are 3 students who had all been getting hypnosis from Dr. Kenney. Now, he was not charged with their deaths. He was charged with practicing hypnotherapy or something. It was
without a license.
He lost his job. He moved to North Carolina. He runs a bed and breakfast or something with his wife now. He's doing fine. Okay. These families, I mean, we spoke with Wesley's, the second death, the first of the 2 suicides. We spoke with his mother, and she is just she's so broken up. So we had Wesley, the football player's girlfriend. We had the mother of, we had Marcus Freeman's girlfriend. We had Wesley's mother, and did Brittany's parents talk to us? I think they did talk to us, Brittany's parents. So
I remember.
The families, they did, the Palumbos, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking. I completely support the fact that they got rid of Dr. Kenney, even though the students still work. There was a division at the school. You cannot do this. When he would do this, he'd be in his office and he'd close the door, and it was a windowless office, and it's he was videotaping the kids. And there's one videotape of one of these kids. This was the kid who actually is very supportive of him. As he gets hypnotized and he slumps his head over right in Dr. Kenney's lap.
I know.
The optics are weird. There's no allegation of any inappropriate sexual conduct, but it was a very it's putting his head right in the principal's lap. Weird.
When I saw that watching the program, I'm like, uh-oh, this is taking a turn that I didn't see. And then it didn't pan out. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, because it's the last thing you want. But I can tell you, hypnosis is very, very powerful. I have some childhood trauma that years ago I had seen a medium. And when I say years ago, I think I was 19, 20. And she had told me back then, do not ever allow yourself to be hypnotized. And at the time, I couldn't understand why she ever told me that. She said, no good will come of it. Do not ever allow yourself to be hypnotized. Well, now as I've gotten older and I've had some things happen and, some other family members tell me, well, don't you remember this happened? And I'm like, no, actually, I don't remember that at all. And I have a really, really good memory. And that was when the realization hit me that I was like, oh my gosh, if I get hypnotized, that's all going to come. I don't need any of that coming back.
Yeah. See, when you get really traumatized, your brain doesn't even register the memory.
No, gone. Just blank. And right. I have gone to bed at night. There are 2 instances in particular from my childhood that I'm like, this happens, and then bam, I have no recollection of anything from that point. And I've tried to remember, it's just not there.
So that's what hypnosis would bring back, probably.
Yes, yeah. And I don't want to know that. It's not good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I might need to be in a rubber room after all of that.
I've never been hypnotized, but I don't really have a desire to either.
No,
And then there are these allegations. Maybe it's true that you can plant memories. You can plant false memories.
I mean, I would think that's possible that you
Right.
could do that. I mean, I think it's we've probably witnessed it before. I can't think of any particular case off the top of my head, but yeah, it's I mean, the brain is very malleable, so you can change how you think about things, but it's also very easily influenced.
And Dr. Kenny, in a deposition, we did get some parts of his civil case deposition.
Oh.
The county did settle with the families. There was a cap on what the families could get. Nothing worth the life of their children, but it's something. He acknowledged that hypnosis can exacerbate depression in a person. And
Oh, Lord.
a young girl, Brittany Palumbo, was depressed. She had,
Yeah.
broken up with her boyfriend. So
Yeah.
that's sad.
That whole case, yeah, very, very sad.
And he had been told by the authorities
To
when they
not-
learned he was doing this in 2009, because he's not caught till 2011. Well, he's not. The deaths are 2011. The authorities knew about it in 2009, and he was warned 3 times.
Stop
not
doing
to
it.
do And he would do it like the end of the year functions. They call them lock-ins, and everybody's at the school. And like the football team, he would hypnotize the players and then take video of them, and everybody's watching. And you're going to dance. You're going to dance really wild and crazy. You're going to put makeup on and a funny, disguise.
Yep.
And they're doing it. It's in our show. And these are, the macho football players who never would have thought they would put lipstick on and
Right.
wiggle their hips the way they were in the video.
Well, and that's when I watched it. That was how I justified him losing his job, is because he had proven there was no guarantee that he would actually follow any of the instructions that they told him, which were to stop hypnotizing students, period. And he couldn't do it.
He didn't do it. And I think that where they went wrong is that they didn't put that in writing. It was always an oral warning, oral versus written. So there's no written record of it. So he always had maybe a plausible deniability, because it was oral.
So I'm going to move us on to a case you and I talked about a little bit backstage, and there may be a lot of people in the chat that don't know about this case, but it's one that I have rabbit holed and I have a strong affinity for, and that is Christian Carl Gerhard Strider, also known as Clark Rockefeller.
He had lots
Wow.
of names, but that was the last
Yes.
he had. And when he went to trial that I was at in 2009, he insisted on being called Clark Rockefeller, even though it was a fake name. He wasn't a Rockefeller, but he had
And
fake
proven to be fake too.
And what?
And proven to be a
Proven
fake
to
name.
be fake. Proven. Right. So he came. Okay, so Christian Karl Gerhard Strider was from Bavaria. He's a German national who came to the United States in the early 1980s. He had met like an American couple on a train in Europe, and they like, hey, why don't you come visit? And he did. And then he went
like,
and he lived with their family in Berlin, Connecticut, and like he told people he was an exchange student. And he wasn't officially an exchange student, but he learned to lie so well, that people believed him. Right up until I'm a Rockefeller, and he married a woman from Harvard Business School who believed he was a Rockefeller. Anyway, so he gets started in the early 1980s, and everything's a little fuzzy in terms of the timeline because he would go underground and then resurface as somebody else. But this family in Connecticut he was living with, the second family, they kind of got sick of him because he would just lay on the couch and expect people to do his laundry and wait on him. And the last straw for them was when the daughter was locked out of the house and he refused to get up off the couch and open the door for her. They're like, okay, you're out of here, buddy.
You got to go.
Yeah. And he was learning English and he loved watching Gilligan's Island, and he learned how to have the affectation. And I'm going to date myself here. I don't know if anybody listening knows the Gilligan's Island, but he loved Thurston Howell III.
Oh, yes.
And so when he became Clark Rockefeller, and also I think the persona he had in Los Angeles, Chichester.
I was going to ask you the other name that he used when he was living with these people, because it was a weird name. And
Chichester, yeah, because he said he was a descendant of Lord Mountbatten.
Yeah, so I was going to say
he had a Thurston Howell III affect that would have made it sort of sound British, aristocratic. I don't know. It's kind of laughable. So yeah, he's in LA and he lives in like this cabin or apartment in like San Marino, I don't know, in the Pasadena area. This woman, she was a widow and an alcoholic, Dee Sohas, and she had these like little cottages and apartments that she would rent out on her property. Right. So he lived in one. And Dee had adopted a son who was married to John, who was married to Linda, and they were living elsewhere, but they had come to visit. And they supposedly were going to be doing some secret job for the government, something to do with satellites, and they were going to be moving east. But they checked out Chichester, and I think they figured out that he's not who he says he was. I think that's probably what happened. That's probably the motivation, because they disappear. All of a sudden, they say they're going to
immediately
disappear, and he disappears. All right, this is now 1985.
Yeah, when was it? Does it say in my notes? It was 85. Yep, you're right.
Dee dies a few years later. She reports her son and daughter-in-law missing, but it takes a while because she got a couple postcards from Paris and she thought they were in Paris on this secret government mission. It was really Chichester, Gerhardt's writer, Rockefeller sending them these fake postcards. So Dee now dies, the late 80s. The house gets sold. The new owners are going to put in a swimming pool. So the excavators are digging for the pool, and lo and behold, they find these garbage bags, body parts.
Find the missing couple.
John Sohas. They never found Linda. John Sohas. Right. Linda was never found, and John Sohas is found. So now the police are like, what in the hell? And the neighbors remembered Chichester digging in the yard. And he said he was having water problems or something, and he had borrowed like a power saw from someone. So they're like, we got to talk to this guy. And when Chichester Rockefeller, Gerhardt's writer, disappeared, so did John Sohas' truck. Well, he drives across country. And like in the next year or so, this is before the parts are found, by the way, in like the late 80s, he tries to sell John Sohas' truck. Now, John is a missing person, and the police are also looking for Chichester because John's disappeared and Chichester disappeared, or what the hell is going on? And then they learned that his truck was being sold. Somebody reported it to the police because he didn't have papers. And then he went underground for like 2 or 3 years. He went he just disappeared. And when he emerged, he was Clark Rockefeller.
Mm-hmm. And he was living in New York City, or at least in New York City area at that time, correct?
Yeah, it was first he was in Greenwich, Connecticut, and then here. Yeah, near where I am. I'm in Manhattan. He met a woman named Sandra Boss. She was a Harvard Business School student. They met while she was at Harvard. Oh, I know. He was at a function where he met her sister. And then that led to him meeting Sandra Boss. And then they started dating. And then she got a job at McKinsey. So she was making a lot of money.
Yeah, she was making bank.
1990, early 90s. Yeah, I mean, he's making $1 million a year, more after a while. And he was never making any money. Telling her he wasn't from the John D. Rockefeller branch. He was from a different Rockefeller branch, like another relative, and that his parents were killed in a car accident and all his money's been tied up in court and so he doesn't have access. So it was all a fake. It was all,
Yeah, it was all lies.
she believed him. They had a wedding and people thought like they were going to a Rockefeller wedding. And then in the halls, I heard that in the halls at McKinsey, people would say, she's married to a Rockefeller. I don't think she changed the name, but she's married to a Rockefeller. But they wouldn't go out in public. They went out to private clubs. You know, there are clubs where famous people, whatever, they want to, sometimes they go to restaurants, but they go to the Metropolitan Club or clubs. And so it's a little more private for them, right?
Sure.
You're not going to have, you know, people taking pictures, whatever, gawking. So he would only want to go to clubs. And then he ends up having an altercation at Central Park. Like, I think they had a dog. They didn't have a child yet. They had a dog. And he had an altercation with a woman. I don't know what it was, a shouting match. I don't know what it was. But the police wanted to talk to him. And that's when he's like, we're moving. And they moved up to New Hampshire.
Oh.
And then the marriage fell. He was psychologically abusive. And she left him. But then in around 2000, but in 2001, very quickly they reconciled. In 2001 they had a daughter. Their daughter was born, and by 2008 they were divorced. She took the daughter to London. She's working in the London office, and he got 3 supervised visits a year with the daughter. That was it. And it was on the first supervised visit, July 27, 2008, in Boston, with a social worker present, that he kidnapped his daughter and had a getaway driver take them here to New York.
Yeah.
And from New York, they had money because he got like $600,000 or $800,000 in the divorce. They went to Maryland. And when the police were processing the kidnapping and they talked to the wife, they're like, where does your husband bank? He doesn't, I don't know what banks. He doesn't bank that I know of. Where is he licensed to drive a car? He doesn't have a driver's license. What's his social security number? I don't know. She knew nothing about her husband. And then, and there were no records of him, but his fingerprints were on file from when he came into the U.S., but that's it. So they pretty quickly learned that he's Gerhardt's writer, and they break the news to her. And there is like a manhunt in the U.S. for this guy.
Oh yeah, I remember.
2008. And he is found. He had a boat. He was getting on a boat. He now had a new name in Maryland, and he was going to take his daughter to Chile, I think, and who knows where from there. But they were caught in Maryland. He had bought like a little cottage or something, and the police or somebody there got him to come out of his cottage, saying his boat was leaking. It was taking on water, and he was like, "Oh!" And he came out, and they cuffed him and arrested him. And the little girl was fine and safe, and returned to her mother. So he went to trial and went to his trial for this kidnapping, and he got a 5-year sentence. And while he was serving his time in Massachusetts State Prison, he got indicted for murder of John Soha. So he went from Massachusetts to California, and he was tried for murder and convicted and sentenced to 27 years to life, which is where he is today. But I really just hit the highlights.
The highlights.
He's had such a life. I don't know how he got away with it for so long.
Well, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what do you think would have happened had he never abducted his daughter? Do you think that
if he hadn't abducted her, well, he probably would have taken on another identity, right?
Be free
until I believe he killed Linda Sohas too. So he's murdered 2 people. Who knows? Because this guy would stop at nothing to protect himself, but he got away with this stuff for years.
It's like Catch Me If You Can almost. It gives those kinds of vibes. Frank Abagnale, same kind of thing.
I so wanted to talk to his wife. She wouldn't give any interviews. Maybe she ended up giving one, but I really wanted to talk to her just because it's a cautionary tale. Like, how do you not know anything about this guy? Like, was she so intimidated that he was a Rockefeller that she was afraid to ask? But he was abusive, and maybe she was starting to get suspicious. Right? It's like he would never tell her anything. It's like, what have I done? You know, she did try to leave him once, and they reconcile. I guess he could be charming. He's kind of a little guy, you know.
Well, that's what I was the next thing I was gonna ask you about, because you said that you were at the courtroom. Tell me about the court proceedings and being there with him, because I know how different it feels. You know, when I went to Donna Adelson, that was years and years and years. I had followed that case from its inception, you know, living in two different states and everything. And I was like, being here, and that's Harvey right next to me sitting here, and that's Donna. And it's
Yeah.
so different. Tell me what it was like with this
So, I
one.
mean, you got to remember that was my life, right? I was a trial attorney before I got to court TV. And once I got to court TV, I was always in the courtroom. I was rarely just watching from home. And, you know,
Right.
as court TV got more and more, I don't know, it morphed into something it wasn't in the beginning. And they wanted me like outside all the time so I could do like commentary and stuff. And I'm like, what am I here for? If I'm going to be
Right.
sitting outside looking at a monitor like you, I'm here. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, for example. I want to be in the courtroom so I can watch the jury, something you don't see. I want to watch the
Yes.
jury. I want to see when they're writing a note, and I want to see, you know, when the defendant is talking to the lawyer, if the camera's, you know, elsewhere. I want to see if somebody's crying in the audience. I want to give you the color of the courtroom. And I want to talk to the lawyers during a break and say who's coming up next or whatever. So I have something to report to you. And I can't do anything. I was like, why am I even here? I may as well just sit in the studio and look at the television. So I
Right.
used to
Right.
fight with them about that. I used to fight with them about it. Oh, and I would sometimes get my way. Like, okay, go into court. My boss used to say, I got one who doesn't want to go in court. I got another who only wants to stay in court. That would be me, the one who wants to stay in court. Because I love the courtroom, and I just feel like I'm a better reporter if I can tell you things you don't see, and also
Yes.
connect with people, right? And so that I can get them maybe to talk later and do an interview or something. Oh, you can't do that sitting outside. But you know, for Christian Carl Gerhart's right, I remember there was a very famous documentary producer who lived nearby. He lives in the Boston area. His name is Errol Morris. Errol Morris has written books, but he does documentaries. His first one that was really famous was The Thin Blue Line.
I
And
recognize the name.
yeah, and he wrote a book. It's up there, Trial of Errors, about Jeffrey McDonald.
Oh,
I think he might have
is
done a
that how I know that name? That might be how I know, because of
Errol
Jeffrey
Morris.
McDonald.
He was there. That's how I met Errol. He was at the trial because he was going to do a documentary on Clark Rockefeller, but he ended up not doing it. I don't think he ever did it. But it was happening in his backyard. So the quorum wasn't that full. A lot of times when a case was a good story, you know, and it may be fairly popular, the courtroom wouldn't necessarily be full except for openings and closings and verdict, because people knew they could just watch it on TV. So they're not going to spend their days going to court. But if you're in a community like, you know, Scott Peterson, where there was no camera in the courtroom, then you know, the courtroom was always full. There were always these coveted seats. And yeah, a friend of mine is the prosecutor in Luigi Mangione, and I know that courtroom's, you know, gets pretty full, and the public seats are really coveted. People will line up, not in the middle of the night. They'll line up a couple of days before, and people get paid to be line holders.
Oh my gosh.
That's what's happening here in New York with Luigi Mangione. That's going to be a September trial.
That's federal, correct?
It's both. His
Yeah.
state's going first. He's got state
Ah,
in. My friend's the state prosecutor. My old
Gotcha.
office. Yeah. It's really a state case. The feds are stretching it to get a case, in my opinion, to get jurisdiction. I mean, he crossed state lines with intent to commit murder. I mean, please. Anyway, it's a state case,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, you know, it was 2009, so I don't have a lot of. I just remember seeing Clark Rockefeller every day at Garrett's writer, but he wasn't like looking around. He wasn't engaging with anybody. He was just sitting there in court, and he wanted to be called Clark Rockefeller. I can't remember if the judge did that, or if he called him Garrett's writer, but his name is Garrett's writer. It's not Rockefeller. So I think he'd call him Garrett's writer.
What did the jury look like? What were some of the big reactions to testimony, or were they kind of just flat? Or I mean, I know it was a
No.
long time
No,
ago,
no, because
so
the key, yeah, it's a long time. I have memos from every day, which I didn't read in preparation, so I don't know
no,
that I
that's
can
fine.
tell you with, because I don't have an independent memory. But I do know the testimony included the wife, the getaway driver, the social worker who was pushed aside. There was an assault on him because he was pushed aside so that
Right.
for Garrett's rider
Could
could get him and his daughter. His daughter was about 8 or so at the time, into the car real fast, and the car was driving away. So all the key players, the social worker, the wife, the getaway driver, all testified. The daughter was not there. There were two prosecutors. He had, I think, one defense attorney, and he asserted an insanity defense which means, when you assert an insanity defense, you're saying I did it, but I'm
yeah.
not the right state of mind. I don't have a sound mind. I didn't know right from wrong, whatever that particular state's definition of insanity is. So you can't label me a criminal because I'm not really responsible. I'm sick, but I did it. You're admitting you did it. So he asserts this insanity defense on the kidnapping, but denies that he assaulted the social worker, and there was one other charge. I was like, what? I mean, okay. So I remember writing, as in a memo to all the anchors and stuff, you're supposed to be admitting everything if you assert an insanity
Right.
defense, denying the lesser charges, admitting the kidnapping. It's because, I mean, he got caught with his daughter. Yes, he kidnapped her on the first supervised visit, but I don't think it took the jury all that long to convict him either. It was June of 2009, but I don't have those details in front of me.
Yeah, and I'm looking in my notes that I had that I put together too, and I don't see it. It doesn't touch on the abduction very much. It's mostly about the California.
It was a beautiful old courthouse in Boston, not far from Faneuil Hall. I mean, Boston is such a historic, beautiful city.
Oh yeah.
It was really a pleasure to be there. I'm from Massachusetts, but I'm from the western part of the state, so I didn't get east very often. So I didn't ever spend a lot of time in Boston growing up, but I enjoyed being there.
Well, how are you so normal coming from Massachusetts? Because everything I see come out of Massachusetts as of late is crazy town.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Like, what are you talking about? What's coming out of Massachusetts right now?
Oh my gosh, all these the Karen Reed followers
Oh
that are
yes,
all
Karen
going.
Reed. Karen
All of
Reed.
that stuff is nutso.
Oh yes, that's right. And then the case of the Brenda, whatever, the pregnant girl who was killed by the cop. She lived in Canton, also where Karen Reed.
Yeah, and Sandra Birchmore, and
That's what I'm talking about. Sandra Birchmore.
Sandra Birchmore.
Sandra Birchmore.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Kelsey Fitzsimmons, and it's like
Yeah,
it's
that's the eastern part of the
crazy.
state. I come from the nice, sane western part. It's all like farmland and country. But
And nice, sweet people.
yeah. So what'd you think of Karen Reed? Alan Jackson,
Oh,
mine.
I mean, I adore Alan Jackson. I think that he and the entire defense team did a phenomenal job. I think that David Yannetti is amazing, and Robert Alessi was a phenomenal addition for what I call season 2 of Karen Reed's trial. I sat down initially to watch that trial, and I said, huh, I wonder why this girl killed her boyfriend. And by like day 3, when we got to collecting evidence in red Solo cups and putting them in Stop and Shop bags, I went, what is happening in this case? And I completely did a 180, and they completely won me over that she was absolutely not guilty. She did not do this. And I know there are people out there that they strongly believe that that she ran him over, and I have my own theory on what I think happened, and I think it happened. I don't want to say in the house, but I think it happened in the premises. I'll say that. I think that something went down either in the basement or in the garage. I do think their dog was involved in it. I don't necessarily know that it was intentional. I think there was a lot of alcohol that had been consumed, and I think a bunch of people freaked out.
Yep. So I don't know how she could have hit him the way they say, and those injuries were caused. I just don't know how that could.
I don't either.
I don't know if she did it or not, but it's the right verdict.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Brian, what's his last name?
Brian Walsh?
The house where no, the house where that's a different kid.
Albert.
Brian Albert. His house had been in the family for a few generations, right? He had the basement floor like redone like a few years earlier. He ripped it up after this.
I know.
He ripped up the basement floor. So, and that's where the weight for the gym. So
they rehomed the dog.
They rehomed the dog. He ripped up the basement floor, and then he sold the house. Ripping up the basement floor, why? Because the blood soaked into it? I don't know. And there was this bulkhead, like those doors going into the basement that they could have brought him out of, so nobody in the house would have
I will
seen.
tell you that in the second trial, I took very copious notes about the temperature of John O'Keefe's cell phone, and the temperature of the cell phone makes me believe that it was in a stable temperature for a long period of time, because it drops, and then it stops for several hours and then starts dropping. The temperature starts dropping again. That makes me believe, yeah, he was in maybe a cooler place, but not cold outside, and was then placed outside where he was ultimately found.
And the phone's under him, right?
And the phone was under him. And they would have access to Faraday bags. They would be able, I mean, you can't put it in airplane mode because that would end up showing, but they're all police officers. And Brian Higgins goes in the middle of the night to the police headquarters. What's he going there for?
Where he didn't work.
And comes out with
a desk there. He might have had a desk there.
He did have a desk there, yeah.
Okay.
And comes out with a duffel bag. Well, what's in the duffel bag? I believe he was getting, the cover up a murder kit. And one of those things I believe was a Faraday bag.
There's so much to work with, the reasonable doubt. And I remember asking Alan before the first trial, when we were talking on the phone, and I said, if you were the prosecutor, what would you do with this case? With what you know? He said, I would dismiss it, Beth. I would dismiss it. And he's like, I will find out who did this. And I believe he believes he did find out who did this, but or close enough. I don't know that he can spend any more time on it. Were they just in court recently?
Yeah, there's the civil case, because there's been a bunch of discovery that's been leaked, and I haven't had an opportunity to get on top of that, but I think there was a hearing today. I saw Kathy Rousson had been posting some things about the hearing that took place. So yeah, I need to get caught up on that to find out what's going on with it, because I think there's a lot to the civil case. So yeah, that was wild. Whose lawsuits are these? I haven't looked at any complaints. The House defendants, as they're called. So it's the Alberts and the McCabe's. Primarily, I think that's who it is. I don't believe, maybe Brian Higgins is included in that.
Who's suing? Karen?
They're suing Karen.
Oh, they're suing Karen. Oh, God. They're suing Karen.
Yes.
For wrongful death.
So all of this stuff is, it's witness intimidation.
I see.
It is everything but the kitchen sink.
I see. I got to look at that complaint. Oh,
me too. Boy. Yeah, because I haven't really dug into it.
And Alan's on it?
He's still part of the team, is my understanding, for the civil case. So, yeah, wow. It's like the gift that keeps on giving.
And Sandra Birchmore was living in Canton, where the Alberts lived, when she was killed. And that cop from Stoughton, the town of Stoughton, is being prosecuted in federal court. I did recently look up, those. They don't call it murder. It's something else because the murder is a state. It's for the state.
Are you talking about Farwell in the Sandra Birchmore case?
Yeah, that's not his name, is it?
His
What's
last name is Farwell. His first name is the
Yes, that's right. Farwell. Yes. Yes. I just got some of his documents off of Pacer. When's the trial? In the fall? I think in October, maybe?
You know what? I don't know because it's federal and it's hard as a layperson to follow a federal case. So I end up not really digging into too much when it's a federal case because, we like to look at the documents and do,
right. Well, you get some off of Pacer, but you're not going to get you're not going to get FBI reports.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of investigations and more courtroom, the case that I, of course, have wanted to debate with Linda Kenny Bodden for quite some time. Casey Anthony. Tell me, you were in the courtroom for part of that, you said, correct?
Well, I was there for the whole trial, but we had like one seat. And so the other reporter, Jean Casares, and we would switch.
Oh, I
had the afternoon. Yeah. And if I had the morning, she had the afternoon. But I would watch it otherwise. I was on the set, reporting, or I was in the courtroom. But I happened to be in there for the verdict. And it knocked the wind out of me, literally. I just was like
couldn't believe it.
The media sat in like this balcony looking down at the courtroom and both sides. Like our box at the upper level looked straight at the judge down on the floor. And then to my right was the defense long table. They set up a long table facing the jury. And then the jury was to my left. And the prosecutors had the table facing the judge. Their backs were to me. So I always had a good look at the jury. And the man who ended up being the jury foreperson, I saw him one day as the jury got up to leave. We'd all wait for the jury to leave before anyone else left. And, they put Casey in a lower chair. So she was sat a little bit lower to the table. So the table's a little bit higher. They put her in a lower, with a little ruffly and buttoned up to here.
Yeah.
Little girl, anything but. She was anything but. And, but this man who ended up being the foreperson was like early 30s, good looking, kind of buff. He was like a gym teacher. They came from a different county. And they came from Pinellas County instead of Orange County, where Orlando is, where the trial was. And he stood there looking across and just kind of lingered, looking in her direction. I can't say he's looking at her, but he's looking in her direction. And that was in the middle of the trial. And I remember thinking, he's trouble. So he led the jury to an acquittal. Look, maybe in the end, it was the right verdict. I didn't think so at the time. Actually, I don't think so now. But the remains of the daughter were so scattered that you can't tell exactly when she died or how she died. And that is what the defense told the jury over and over. We don't know how she died. We don't know when she died. We just don't know. But Casey was charged with like a child neglect and aggravated manslaughter as well as murder. She did not report her toddler missing for 31 days. She didn't report her missing until her mother was like, where in the hell is your daughter?
Well, she was avoiding her mother.
Yes. And she was making up lies that she's with the nanny and she's making up lies. And later she said, I was doing my own investigation. Well, she was like going out to dance,
partying,
getting a tattoo. And it's like, she was free now. So she should have been convicted of maybe the child neglect or child abuse or something. I don't know.
That was one of the questions I was going to have is when you were in the courtroom, and you've given me a little bit of that with this gentleman that ended up being the foreperson. Did it seem like the jury was connecting at all with what the prosecution was putting forth? Or
it's hard to tell because jurors usually sit stone-faced. And you can't, like, people would often ask me, I did a gazillion live shots over almost 2 decades at trials. And, the question I did not like is, what was the jury thinking? It's like, how the hell do I know what the jury's thinking? We'll talk to them when we get their verdict. We'll get an idea when we get their verdict. I don't know what they're thinking, but I could glean things from body language. Shaking their heads, a smile, wiping their eyes, sitting back like that. Like, I don't believe you, creating a barrier.
How feverishly they're taking notes.
That's exactly right. Or in those courts where judges allow notes, when they take notes.
Mm-hmm.
No, they always allow notes. When they allow notes to be given and dropped in a box to ask the lawyers.
Oh, I love that.
I always would note, like in Jodi Arias, I would note which jurors are like at this point they're dropping a note. May not relate to that particular testimony, but it's that juror number 5 is asking another question. So, but the note taking, most judges allow note taking. A few don't, because they say, I want you to pay attention to the witness and not look down at your notes. Because when you're listening to testimony, it's not just the words, it's how they're spoken, and it's the demeanor of the witness on the stand too. You take everything in, it's a whole package. And so if the witness is slouching and being disrespectful, I mean, you kind of need to see it. And so the judges don't want you being distracted by taking copious notes. You can have read back, or there's a transcript. You don't have to, take all these notes. But I think it's a good idea to let judges take notes, because once they go into the jury room, they say there's no greater mind there's no greater mind than the collective mind of 12 jurors. And it never ceases to amaze me what jurors will come up with in the end. Or the questions that they'll ask. It's like, wow, I didn't think about that. Wow, they're really doing their job. So
yeah, we watched the Dale Warner trial that was out of Michigan. Dee Warner was found inside an anhydrous tank. He had cut it open and put her remains in there and sealed it back closed, and claimed that she ran off. And he was convicted. But in that particular case, the jury was allowed to ask questions. And oh my gosh, we all got so excited every time that we could find out what the jury's question was, because it does kind of tell you what's their thought process.
Absolutely. Not every question that is asked is allowed to be actually delivered. I mean,
correct.
The jury may submit a question, but the judge will look and make sure it's an appropriate question.
Correct.
In Jodi Arias was on the stand for 18 days. And then she got 230 questions. I just remember going outside and saying, I mean, we're all getting Jodi fatigue. I'm just getting sick of this.
I do remember that part of it. Shut her up already.
Yep. And 230 questions.
Yeah, that's insane.
I do want to say, though, that this is not a Casey Anthony comment, that being a woman, wanting a divorce, being pregnant are huge risk factors in your safety. And it's become one of my causes. I know we're going to get to causes, but one of my causes to raise awareness for women who are in danger, domestic violence. I can't tell you how many cases I've covered, and the stories are coming of, husband kills wife, or, they're rampant in the military, if women want to leave or they're pregnant, murders. Now, not just assaults, but murders. It's something that women, need to just be really cautious of. Maybe not the people listening tonight. I don't know.
We talk about it.
You do?
We talk about it often on my channel. One of the things that I try to push is location services. Everybody that is on my channel knows when we've talked about other women that have gone missing or have lost their lives. Make sure your location services are on. So people, at least on your cell phone, so people at least know where you are. There have been young women, or I shouldn't even say young, just women in general, whose lives have been saved because they were found based on their location services and taken out of a dangerous situation. So no, I am a huge proponent of that as well. You can never be educated enough on how to protect yourself, and help.
I carry one of those birdie, sirens to pull apart. I also bought at CrimeCon from that couple that runs the self-defense, table. Yeah. I bought a necklace. I don't have it on tonight, which is a whistle. It's gold. It's pretty. The little pendant's a whistle, actually. And I also have pepper spray. I have a wrist one as well. So although cops, I know a lot of cops, they tell me that any civilian they know who has pepper spray, mace, they always shoot themselves in the face. They don't the nozzles. They don't know how to use it properly, or they're not making sure the nozzle's pointed away. So they're like, I don't know, just don't shoot yourself with a bath. It's like, okay, thank you.
You'll poke your eye out.
Yeah.
So being in the courtroom, and you may not have been in there when any of this testimony took place, but the whole George did it testimony, and how do you feel like that was landing with the jury? Was there any sort of connection with the defense saying that, you know what I'm talking about, that
Look, it ultimately worked, right? Because they acquitted her, but I don't know that they believe the accident theory. They might have been what resonated with the jury, I think, is we don't know how she died. We don't know when she died. Okay, we know she was last seen on June 16, 2008, and she wasn't reported missing until July 15th, but, you know, or July 16th to 15th. Yeah. You know, the accident thing, I mean, George didn't do himself any favors. He was one of the first witnesses on the stand for the prosecution. He denied it, of course. He wasn't a great witness, and he did attempt suicide at one point before the trial. And so, like, that made some people think, well, maybe he does have some, you know, guilty conscience. And I don't know. I mean, Casey, I don't know if you've heard this, but didn't Casey say she had been sexually abused by her father when she was young, and she was afraid that her daughter was going to be sexually abused?
Yes.
And I don't know, like someone told me, I think somebody who used to be on the team, I can't remember who it was, that there was a particular song that George used to sing to Casey when she was little. This person believed that Casey was abused, and he started singing that to Kaylee, or Kaylee started singing the song or something. So I don't know if there's any truth to that. But look, that whole defense I thought was crap, because if it was an accident, what are you hiding? Like just
right.
Like, tell people it's an accident. My daughter died, you know, like what are you going out partying for? Lying to your mother, she's with the nanny. Like, I don't understand. Like, what?
I felt like the jury was probably the dumbest individuals put on a jury, that they bought the defense. I was like, these people are dumb. I hate to say that, but
I don't know that they bought the defense, but they didn't find that the prosecution met their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And I don't know if it would have made a difference if she wasn't charged with capital murder, but you're getting the stakes are a little higher when it's capital murder. I mean, she didn't get, I mean, it's one thing to convict of murder and not give the death penalty, which is what happened in Jodi Arias. Well, it was a split jury twice. You only get 2 shots in Arizona. Only get 2 shots at the death penalty, and then it's life. And it's hard to get the death penalty. So I mean, if they hadn't sought death, would the jury have felt any differently? Probably not. Probably not.
No, I feel like it was like a flock of them flew over on that jury. You know, I've sat on 2 juries. I sat on a criminal case and a civil case, and you know, I encourage everyone all the time, if you're called for jury duty, don't get out of it. Go, go, go. It is an amazing experience.
I'm so excited every time.
Yes.
And I never get picked. The last time I was in federal court and the judge recognized me. We had to wear masks. It was during COVID, so it was a long time. But the judge said, "You're Court TV, a woman," and she's on the Court of Appeals now. And I was like, "Yeah." And it turns out that I knew one of the defense lawyers. I had a case with him when I was a prosecutor, but he wasn't in court. I just recognized his name on the documents we had to review. And so, big sidebar with me and all the lawyers and prosecutors and stuff. And I was like, "Come on, guys! Like, I'm really fair, you know. Like, I've only been the Innocence Project, and yeah." And I mean, I will be a really good juror. So they send me back to my seat. They're talking. And then the judge called me back up, and she's like, "It would be a lot more fun if you were on this jury, but we got to excuse you." It's like, okay, good. So she ended up presiding over Ghislaine Maxwell's trial.
Oh, really?
Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, yeah.
Wow.
She's now an appellate judge, though, circuit court.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to get to a few questions here that I have starred. First one is, did you ever have a toxic workplace? And was the DA's office a boys' club?
Oh, what a good question.
I know
Yes,
that's my Miss Kelly.
yes, I have. Um, yes, you know, there were times in the DA's office where I felt like I wasn't treated the same as men. Look, I was the same level, I got the same salary and all that, but it was an attitude. When I went into racketeering, it was different from street crime. That was the old boys club, you know, the old detectives who were doing mafia cases, and it's like, oh, geez. And yeah, it was uncomfortable for me sometimes. But
That was common, I think, in that era too. I worked in the automotive industry
yeah,
at that
yeah,
time, so very, very male dominated, and it's hard to explain to young people, like even my son, he's 24, because he's just never been exposed to that, and I've tried to explain it was just kind of like an air about everything. It wasn't necessarily overt behavior. Sometimes it was, but it was
it was
this
an
kind,
attitude, yes. And you know,
yes,
in
like
those
you're
days,
inferior.
yeah, yeah. I never went to court without a skirt, dress, suit on,
Hmm.
hose, pantyhose, and high heels, right? Today, I mean, obviously pantsuits or even just a nice top and pants are completely acceptable. I don't know that I could do that today. Even when I
I
was at court
know.
TV, I always dressed for court because I had to dress for air too, but I dressed for court. But I would wear slacks, you know, at court TV. But it was just it was a different era. You know, I was
Yeah.
there from 86 to 94. Yeah. So I have been, and I was a paralegal at a big law firm in Washington, D.C., and a big law firm in New York for 2 years each before I went to law school. And I saw it there too. I was treated well, but I was contacted by reporters as soon as I left the DA's office who
Mm.
wanted to do a hit job on a DC attorney. And they learned that I was now in like the private sector at Core TV. And they knew I had
Oh,
worked at this law firm in Washington, and that the lawyer at this law firm, a partner, had gone to the White House to be White House counsel, and they had heard that he sexually harassed people. So I said, well, I never had that experience with him, but let me call a few of my former colleagues, paralegals.
right.
I remember calling one of them. Everybody became a lawyer. One of them went on to defend Lorena Bobbitt. One of my colleagues defended Lorena Bobbitt.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and she lives in Virginia. But so I called this guy. We had been paralegals together, and I said, "You know about like these allegations of sexual harassment?" He goes, "Oh my God, that guy's the poster boy for sexual harassment." And then he tells me how one of the other paralegals was chased around a hotel room by him. He was trying to
Oh
get her.
my
Oh no,
gosh.
I was harassed by when I was in the New York firm because we
Uh,
got sent to. I was with two senior associates, and we got sent to Houston for a month on a litigation, and there were no computers then, and I
right.
knew that paperwork. I had drawers of paperwork, and it was all in my head, and they needed me to like, where's that document, where's this document? I'm just a paralegal, right? But it was like a computer in my head. And as soon as we landed, it was two single guys, as soon as we landed in Houston, they said, which one of us are you going to have an affair with? I had a boyfriend in New York, and I was like, oh my God, it was so
Wow.
awful. We rented a house. We had to live together in a house. It was awful. I
Oh,
blew the whistle on
creepy.
those guys. They lost their jobs. But it was for more than that. But it was that plus the abuse of the client funds. Anyway, that was one experience. Another
So,
question?
yeah,
Yeah.
next question. If you could give one piece of advice to a woman wanting a career in the legal field, what would it be?
Okay, so one piece of advice. I don't know if it's going to be one. I'm going to just do a stream of consciousness here. It's a good question. First of all, it's a new era today. I want anyone who is thinking about going into law to um, hopefully they love law, but not feel like you have to stay wedded to it. I know a lot of people with JDs who are going on and doing all sorts of entrepreneurial things. When I was thinking about business school versus law school, I talked to a lawyer saying, what should I do? He said, go to law school. You can always do business with a law degree. You can't practice law with a business degree, and it's only one more year. So go and get that degree. It's a good education. It's a good way to learn like analytical and critical thinking. You get some really good tools for all kinds of things, whether you're interested in environmental law or tax law or healthcare or criminal law. I mean, but don't if you get disillusioned at a law firm, There's so much out there. And having that JD next to your name will open doors. Promise you. I promise you it will.
Excellent, excellent advice. Next question. What are your thoughts on the pending bills, sunshine in courtroom, cameras in courtroom, acts allowing cameras in federal courtrooms?
So, when I first started at Court TV in 1994, rather, I started on June 27th. Between my resignation at the DA's office and starting at Court TV, it was a 6-week period. O.J. Simpson got arrested. So I started on it like with O.J. just started. And I walked into a newsroom with people saying, maybe he didn't do it. And I'm like, what are you effing kidding me? Are you kidding me? So anyway, okay. But wait, I forgot the question. Wait, what was the question?
The cameras in the courtroom, laws for cameras.
Oh, okay, that became
in the federal courtrooms.
Okay, the cameras in the courtroom became my life. But the very first trial I ever covered for Court TV was a federal civil case, because there was a federal experiment that was just ending. The federal judiciary experimented with cameras in civil court. Everybody got high marks, and they still didn't go forward with it. It is high time that there are cameras in courtrooms. These are public courtrooms, and not everybody can get a seat in a courtroom, and a lot more people are interested in the proceedings. Our legislative sessions are open. Our courtrooms should be open. Finally, the Supreme Court lets oral argument. You used to have to wait like 2 years to get an oral, just audio recording of the oral arguments, and now they're released right away. And sometimes we can even hear arguments simultaneously. I think now we can hear them simultaneously. So some courts allow it, but appellate, right? Already, New York appellate courts, but federal courts need to. Here's the thing that sticks in my craw. The argument against cameras that gets made over and over again is that it affects the witness on the stand or it affects the jurors. And that's like, those are the two critical things in the courtroom, right? You want the defendant to get a fair trial. You want the jury not to be affected by a camera. You don't want the witnesses to be affected. But I don't know of one case, and I've been in a ton of courtrooms with cameras at the state level that got overturned because it was a camera, because it affected the jury or the witnesses. There's so much evidence that it's okay, right? To let people see the process. And today you can put tiny little cameras up on the wall and you can operate them robotically. You can be so unobtrusive. You don't have to have the big tripod in the back or the big cameras. It doesn't exist anymore. So I'm all for it. And I think it's time. It's time. And when the Supreme Court issued opinions over the past decades, I think it was in the 1960s. I forgot the name. Estes. I forgot the name of the case where the judge who wrote the opinion said there will come a time when the technology will not be obtrusive, when it will be permissible. But it was just like it was just not. We weren't there yet at that time. It's time. I actually asked Sonia Sotomayor. I saw her at an event. She used to be in the DA's office. She left 2 years before I started. And I said, cameras in the courtroom, what do you think? She didn't take a position. She said, well, Judge Souter said over my dead body, would there ever be a camera in Supreme Court? And I was like, well, he's gone now. But that's as far as he wasn't on the court anymore, but that's as far as we got.
Well, I'll tell you, a case that got me all revved up was the Aaron Spencer case. And I'm trying the state that it was in. He was just recently, they dismissed the charges. He was running for sheriff. His daughter had been being sexually abused by this man who should have been behind bars. Arkansas. Thank you, Kelly. It was in Arkansas. And he ended up chasing his daughter down, who was with the man. There ended up being an altercation. He shot the man who had been sexually abusing his daughter. And they had all kinds of shenanigans going on with the body cam for the police officers that went there, and missing evidence, and it just went on. And then they started doing this. We're not going to allow any cameras in the courtroom. The minute I hear that in a case, it makes me want to take vacation time and drive to wherever it is, because I want to shout from the rooftops what's going on in those courtrooms, because the only reason I can think of any courthouse or judge would not want cameras in there is because they are hiding what they're doing. There's no reason for it.
It's funny. Yeah, that's a good story. And I hear you loud and clear. When Steve Brill, the man who started Court TV, and I were having lunch before Court TV, when it was an idea, before it existed, it was like a couple years before, when he had written that article about me, he asked me what I thought about cameras in the courtroom, that he was thinking about starting a network. And my immediate reaction without thinking was, it'll keep lawless judges in line. That's what I said to him. Not that many judges I appeared before were so lawless, but I felt that sometimes they stepped over the line and, didn't do things, maybe talk to a defendant, not in the right way or whatever. I said, it'll keep lawless judges in line. So that's in line with what you're saying.
Yeah,
yes,
it absolutely infuriates me. When we rewatched the Holly Bobo trial, that was one of the things that was so utterly obvious, is that the judge, he was watching football on his iPad on the bench in the middle of the trial. Yes. It is some of the most egregious behavior that came out of that trial. The post-conviction hearings are phenomenally, you don't even think you're watching that it's reality when you see it. The prosecuting attorney, she was horrible, despicable person. And so, yeah, anytime I see that, I go, what are you trying to hide? Because I have issues. So let's talk about your causes.
Okay, my cause, but I see a comment. It's when a defendant, it's 100%, especially when the defendant wants a public trial. I agree. If a defendant wants a public trial, the state or government should not ever take a position. Let the camera in. There should be a camera unless there's a darn good reason not to. An undercover cop on the stand, a child on the stand, those are the exceptions. Okay, my causes.
So before we talk about that, I want everybody that watches this live stream, in the details below, in the details for this particular live stream, I have links to Beth's website and all of the causes that she is involved in. So as she's talking, you all can check that out. I just want to make sure everyone knew where
I do need to update it. Let me start with one that's not on there yet. I just was asked to be on the board, like a month ago, for a new foundation. Murder Has a Name. So I don't even know if the site's up. I think there's a website, but it's brand new, and it's established by the parents of Kaylee Gonsalves, one of the 4 students killed in Moscow, Idaho, by Brian Koberger. And it's going to, and I agreed to be on the board. Nancy Grace is on, Chris Hansen, others. We're going to be raising money to help police departments who need extra funding, extra help for DNA testing. Because I've been reading, a lot of books on crime and cold cases. And one detective was quoted in a book I got at CrimeCon, saying that the future is really is relying on people to help us, because our budgets are only so big. Our labs have only so many people. So, you can send out to private labs. So this is what we're doing. And they've already raised, a decent amount of money, but a lot more is needed. So I'm going to help them with events and things like that.
Awesome.
So that's one. But, the MPS Society, MPS, the letter M as in Mary, S as in Sam, S as in society. So Mucopolysaccharidosis Society, based in Durham, North Carolina, is near and dear to my heart. And that is a support and advocacy organization, raises money for research for a group of rare orphan diseases that my brothers had one of. There's like 8 of the diseases, MPS and ML. My brothers were the ML3, mucolipidosis type 3. Both of my parents gave a recessive gene that produced these special needs boys. I could have had it. My sister could have. There's 4 of us.
Wow.
And my brothers lived into their adult years. My younger one was 34 when he passed, and then the older one was 46. So, but as they got older, they progressively got worse. They were in wheelchairs by the end of their lives. So, it's more and more is being learned about it, but like all our lives, we did not know what they had. They did not get a name of the disease until they were in their teens or early 20s. That's maybe teens.
What were some of the symptoms?
The manifestations.
Yeah.
All of their joints were stiff. My older brother said, like their hands like this. And they couldn't, like all their joints were messed up. And my older brother told me his goal in life was to know what it felt like to have his palm on the table.
Aww.
He didn't know what that felt like. So, yeah, it was my younger brother. He had it worse, and he had like scoliosis. He was on his back in a body cast for a year at a time, twice to put a rod in his back. Because the first time I didn't fuse properly to save his life. He would have died at 18. So they did give him several more years of life. He died at home. He lived with my parents. My older brother could live. He was a little more independent. He could actually drive a car. He had an apartment, but he lived in the same town. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to that. I'm actually putting together I might write about the whole family, but maybe just for the family, maybe for publication, a book. So,
yeah.
But there's a lot more to that's part of my life. There's a lot more.
Yeah, of course.
Talk about.
And then you have your other, what is it? Inner society, the inner circle.
Inner
Isn't
circle.
That
So I'm sort of the CFO business manager of the inner circle of New York political journalists. And although I'm not a political journalist, I got voted into the organization 25 years ago when I was at Court TV because the president then, who had been a local reporter in New York, was at Court TV, and she demanded I be a part of it. We put on a political satire spoof every year. It's been going on for over 100 years. So I've been in it for 25, and now I kind of run it. I run the business side of it. And it is with a Broadway orchestra, music director, choreographer, all Broadway or formerly Broadway.
Color me jealous.
And the mayor puts on a rebuttal act. And we make fun of everybody. We make fun of Democrats. We make fun of Republicans. We make fun of everybody at the local, state, and federal level. And it's really hilarious. When the year Eliot Spitzer was governor, and he went down in flames because
big time.
Remember that? He got caught like hookers or something.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
The week of the show, and we write it. I'm not on the writing side. I'm not as creative as those writers.
Like,
but
thank you for this gift.
Comedy writers, and we take show tunes and pop tunes and rock or rap or whatever, and change the lyrics. Right. That week, they incorporated a new song in the show. One of our senior members became Eliot Spitzer. He came out on stage in boxer shorts with black socks up to his knees because remember the hookers said that Eliot didn't take his socks off. And then he had 5 scantily clad, women dancing around him. And it was Client Number 9, but it was to the tune of Love Potion Number 9.
I love it.
So that's the kind of stuff we would do.
Well, color me jealous.
Donnie is the mayor now. He did a decent show last year. Usually the mayor brings on a celebrity or quarterback of one of the big teams or something. He didn't want to bring on any celebrities this year. He said he didn't want to seem too elitist. I'm going to tell him, this is charity. We're raising money for
entertain people.
Students. You bring a celebrity. I'm going to tell him.
That's right. You tell him. Yeah. I mean, I say color me jealous because I am currently right now in rehearsals for a community theater production because I am a massive theater geek. And so yeah, when you're talking about putting on a show and a Broadway orchestra, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would be salivating.
We do it at the Ziegfeld Ballroom, the famous Ziegfeld Ballroom. That is where the Follies used to perform. That's where our show is. Yeah.
Wow. You're fancy.
Black tie. It's black tie. Yeah, it's like the top tables are like 18,000, but it's open bar for 5 hours, so each ticket is pretty expensive.
Sure.
To be course.
Well, I think I have one more question here, and this is a riveting question. What is your skincare routine? Because your skin is flawless.
Oh, that is so sweet. Whoever's asking that, I have friends who want me to start a YouTube page, but there are a lot of people doing skincare. Look, I am well into my senior years. Okay, no secret. You can find my age out there. I'm going to be hitting the big 70, but I take very, very good care of my skin. Okay. Every sunblock every day. I don't drink soda. I have 1 cup of coffee. I mean, the skincare, it comes from within too. I take supplements, I eat well, all that stuff. But I use the cleanser, actually 2 cleansers, a serum. At night, I will sometimes do the, red light. I also have the face light, red light, which I'll do maybe once or twice a week. But you got to stay hydrated. You got to moisturize, moisturize, moisturize. Okay. I'm feeling it. Like the joints are getting a little like arthritic, but don't call it my age. Okay. Let's just keep it among us girls. Okay.
Well, we celebrate.
Keep working. I want to stay on television.
Yeah. We celebrate age here.
Good.
And there's no shame in it. I am a breast cancer survivor. And so every birthday for me is another gift. That is part of the reason I even do what I do on YouTube, is because I said I'm going to live and do the things I want to do and do the things that make me happy. And regardless of what that is, because I feel like I was given a second chance. And so I always celebrate it. I am 56 and a half years old. I will be 57 in November, and I am
fabulous,
thrilled to still be here and kicking and annoying all of my family.
My mother, who passed, in 2006, she said, a woman is beautiful at all ages. She wasn't capable. She was severely mentally ill. She couldn't really care for herself the way I do, but do I care for myself? But she was a wonderful person, and she had her own demons, but she was a wonderful person. But she's like, a woman is beautiful at all ages. And she's right, like embrace it. And I was just listening to my first Mel Robbins book. And I've learned a lot from Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins called me years ago before she was famous. We had the same managers or something. They wanted her to give me a shot. But her book is helping me because I've been afraid to write a book because I'm not really a writer. And people are like, you have stories to tell. You should just share them. I'm sharing stories tonight. And so she's making me feel like it's okay. Time's passing. What am I waiting for? And I don't give a shit. I mean, if somebody doesn't like it, don't buy it. Don't read it, right? But
that's what I tell people.
But I also I hope that maybe some of the journey I've been on could help some people.
Absolutely.
Because it hasn't always been easy. It was very, very tough when I was young. A lot of trauma. So
yeah, I hear you. We have discussed several things on my channel here in the past about my family and things like that. So I completely understand. I'm blessed to have Mr. Demeanor, who is currently on Dove Watch because he's already named the dove. He breeds guppies while I'm doing this, and we have a dove that is sitting on a nest, and he's named her Esther. And so that's his new project now, is to watch Esther the dove. So, but do not let any time pass. Do it. Don't be afraid to do things. Take the risk. Take the chance.
Yeah.
You've got a lot to say. A lot of people would be interested. I mean, look at me here, just chatting away with you for a couple hours. So
I know. So let's do it again.
I would love to do it again. Absolutely. Because there's more cases we have to talk about.
Well, that's right. There's more cases. We'll give it a little time in case anybody's sick of hearing me for a couple hours. We'll give it a little time. But thank you. I've seen a couple comments, but I've been focusing on you. So I haven't really been reading the comments. But thank you, everyone, for your kind words. And Janet, it's really been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Kind.
I would never would have believed a year ago or even 6 months ago that I would be sitting having such an amazing conversation with someone as educated as you are, knowledgeable about so much true crime. I mean, this is literally a dream come true for me. I had family so excited about this particular live stream just because they know how. I mean, I followed true crime since I was a teenager. So
when I looked out at the audience at CrimeCon, or just all the people who were there, and when I see all this stuff happening, all these true crime podcasts and books have always been there. We always had the books, but the podcast, it's like I and all my colleagues at Court TV, we laid the groundwork for this. Like we were there
Absolutely.
first. We were the place to go for a criminal story that you wanted to follow, like in real time, in long form. There was like when I was at Scott Peterson, Jeff Zuckerberg was in Palo. I was living in Palo Alto. Jeff Zuckerberg was in Palo Alto that summer. He ended up dropping out of Harvard, but he was developing Facebook the summer that I was covering Scott Peterson. And then a year later, Twitter came. So when I was covering Scott Peterson without a camera, I had a BlackBerry.
Right.
And there was this overflow audio room. And we had one producer in the courtroom and another one in the overflow room who could type really fast, almost like a transcript. And he would type and only send it to me. He wasn't blasting it to the anchors in New York, just to me, so that I had something to report. And then I would just read a BlackBerry. That's how people saw it. They think they saw the trial. They didn't see the trial.
Right.
Cross-examination just started. Mark Gill goes, first question, listen to this. And then I would read it. I was like, acting it out. But it was just coming naturally. Anyway, it's such a different world. But I and my colleagues laid the groundwork.
Yes.
For all of you and the great work you do now.
It's so funny because I talked to Vinnie Politan at CrimeCon, and I said that I joked and I said he's the reason I ever went on X, and it was because of the Casey Anthony trial, and he was tweeting what was happening, and I was like, I'm at work, but I have to know what's going on, and I can't watch it, and so that was literally how I was introduced to this type of social media was through that case,
Yeah. And that happened, long after Scott Peterson, years after. But
Yes.
I was really, the first trial I ever really tweeted a lot at was Jodi Arias. I was tweeting up a storm at Jodi Arias. I think I was too busy. I was taking my own notes. But anyway, okay, we digress. We're going back. All right. So it was
we'll
a lot
do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you seems like such a small word, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Be safe.
Absolutely. We always end with make good choices. I'm just not there yet because I got some other stuff. So
okay, so I'm leaving, and you put me in backstage now.
I'll put you backstage. Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Y'all, how fantastic that we got all of this great information. A couple things I want to make sure that I go over with all of you. I haven't given up on a replay of the Ted Binion, or technically it's Sandy Murphy and Rick Tabish. I think I'm going to try to figure out a way to shorten that in some way so that we can cover it after, of course, my show opens in mid-August, because I am rehearsal girl right now. I'm skipping out on rehearsal right now to be here with all of you. So we'll do that. I know there has been a lot of movement on the docket. David Anthony Burke had a hearing this week. Of course, Karen Reed, there was a hearing. There was a bond hearing with Terrion Arnold. I will do a replay of the Terrion Arnold bond hearing. I'm just not entirely sure when I'm going to do that, because I got a lot to say as we watch that. In the meantime, make sure that you hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. And lastly, you all know how this goes. It doesn't cost a penny to be kind. So find someone to do something nice for today if you haven't already. And remember, we always